All right.
Here we go. First, please tell me your name and spell it. You'll be talking to me.
Samuel Collins, the third, Samuel Collins, the third.
And how would you like your title to read on the screen?
Co-chair of the Juneteenth Legacy Project.
Love it. Man, what an earth-shattering day.
Absolutely.
First of all, it's astonishing enough that it took 2 years between the Emancipation Proclamation and the reading by General Granger of Order 3, and then for another over 150 years for it to become a federal commemoration. How does it feel to be nearing the kind of goalpost, if you will?
We got to get this ball in the end zone. So it's first down after first down after first down, or if you're on a basketball court, getting it through the hoop or whatever. We are not there until the president signs it, but I believe that he is on the way to doing that. If his pen is out of ink, just call me and I'll make sure he has one that writes.
I love it. This is obviously a huge day, really for us all.
Yes, sir.
Tell me your perspectives on that.
Yeah, you know, Juneteenth celebrates the evolution of our country to a more perfect union. So for me, what we do today by making Juneteenth a national holiday is we honor the memory of the former enslaved individuals that were not free in 1528 when Esteban arrived here shipwrecked. They were not free in 1619, which is a date that is associated with the transatlantic slave trade. They were not free in 1776 with the 4th of July and Declaration of Independence. And even with Juneteenth and the General Order Number 3, there was limited freedom, but it was better than what was before. And they chose themselves, before it was on the calendar in Texas as a state holiday, before we were having these discussions today, the former enslaved chose for themselves that June 19th was their Independence Day. And we honor their memory by acknowledging their pain and suffering and the opportunity that freedom presented. So June 19th is not so much about enslavement for me as much as it is about freedom and opportunity, because there were towns and settlements like the 1867 settlement that was a direct result of freedom coming to this southwest corner on June 19th, 1865 here in Galveston. Southwest corner of 22nd and Strand here in Galveston. This is where Gordon Granger set up his headquarters and issued General Order Number 3. There's no actual documentation that states that he read it publicly anywhere, either here or Ashtonville or anywhere. He issued General Order Number 3, and then the soldiers, 75% of them that came into Texas were United States colored troops, then began spreading the message of freedom all throughout Texas.
So we're kind of at ground zero.
We are absolutely on sacred ground. The Osterman building is no longer there where the headquarters was set. We're in the old Galveston Square building at 2217 Strand, Suite 101. So right behind the mural, behind that wall, we are in the Neal Cultural Center Juneteenth Legacy Project headquarters. And this is where we will tell an expanded story of the journey of freedom. So in the mural, you have Esteban, or Estevanico. His name before coming to America was Mustafa Azamori. He had a life, a culture, language, art, science before he came to America. But from that first enslaved individual to over 250,000 enslaved individuals in 1865, the journey of freedom and the journey to absolute equality continues.
Yeah, it continues is a good choice of words. What do you think it's going to take to get there?
To get absolute equality does not mean equal results. Absolute equality means giving everyone the equal opportunity to become their very best self, without hurdles or barriers being put in front of them to slow their development or progress. So these hurdles or barriers come in various forms. But we want to create an environment where everyone can become their very best individual, because as you become a better individual, your family becomes better, neighborhoods become better, cities become better, counties, state, nations, and hopefully the world. So the work that we have to do is to educate. James Baldwin has this quote, in The Fire Next Time, these innocent people are trapped in a history they don't understand. So many individuals are defending a patriotic history that they don't fully understand. They do not know on the north side of the Strand was the largest auction house owned by John Seabrook Sidner. Tied to the city, Seabrook, the name, John Seabrook Sidner had been a mayor of Galveston. That auction house divided families. And if we do not do the work, Maya Angelou has a quote, history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. We must face in this moment with courage the need to tell the truth of what happened, even if it makes some people uncomfortable. We will tell the truth of what happened. So this mural and 5,000 square foot display helps to reimagine monuments and memorials in public spaces that will tell a more complete narrative. So if it's being attacked in the classrooms, then we must take it to the street. And on the southwest corner street, we now have an outdoor classroom. And we want to invite you down to Galveston to attend school with your teacher, Professor Juneteenth.
I love it. When I came in and was setting up, you were reciting a poem to some guests. Can you recite that for us?
It's not to be released yet,
Okay.
so I won't recite it, but it's called The Cake. Okay. And just as a little bit, individuals are coming to see the mural, which represents the icing on the building, but behind the paint and plaster are the bricks that make my heart ache. See, these bricks are the bricks that laid the foundation, not only for this building, but for America. And while you do not always see the bricks or the fingerprints that are in the bricks, they are ever present in our banking, housing, healthcare, education, and all areas of our life. The effects of what happened in the past, we are still dealing with today. So even though you don't see the fingerprints and the bricks behind the paint and plaster, as a historian, it's my job to point those things out to you.
Another way to point these things out is the application. Can you talk about that yet?
The Uncover Everything app?
Yes.
Yes, the augmented reality brought to us by a young man named Danny Asbury L. and his nonprofit Soel International. They are working in partnership with the artists that painted the mural, Original Adams and his team, Kadavian Baylor, Dantrell Boone, Cherry Meekins, Joshua Bennett, and Samson Adenugbe. That is the team that painted the mural. But the augmented reality is brought to Galveston and was brought to Houston by Danny Asbury L. and Soel International. When you download the app in partnership with the Uncover Everything app, you will be able to point your smartphone at the mural and learn the history of the images in the mural. This again creates an outdoor classroom on this corner and some of the history that individuals have not known in the past because it was not taught in the classroom. I never read about the 75% of the Union soldiers were United States colored troops that came into Texas. I didn't read it in elementary school, junior high, high school, or college. And so it did not only cheat me, but every student got an incomplete education. And it's our job now to fill in the cracks and teach the truth of what happened.
As a child, beginning my boyhood on our family's ranch in Crosby, we always celebrated Juneteenth with our friends of all shapes, sizes, skin tones, etc. And I didn't realize until much later that it was essentially at that time in the late 50s a statewide or maybe even regional at that time celebration, and that it was not yet embraced throughout the South until much later, as people kind of understood.
Yeah, it didn't become a law until 1979,
Right.
but there was actually an elected official that tried to get it as a law in 1879, 100 years before, but it failed. So Representative Al Edwards did the work necessary to get it passed in 1979, and we absolutely need to honor his memory for the work that he and the other elected officials at that time did, and the ancestors that are no longer here and the elders that did the work to make sure that Texas became the first state to acknowledge Juneteenth. And now, today, we're going to have the entire nation acknowledge that the end of enslavement is important enough to put on the calendar. Yes, freedom came to different areas and territories at different times. Last year in 2020, Juneteenth became popular, but June 19th, 1865 has always been important to the former enslaved, to their descendants, and to individuals like yourself that celebrated with us and with those individuals in the community. That started regionally in Texas, but spread all over. But the message of freedom came to different areas at different times. So some communities, January 1st, April 16th, May 20th, December 6th, they celebrate different days of freedom. But what they will be able to do now annually on June 19th, as we celebrate the end of enslavement, is tell the story of what happened in their community on the 19th of June. So like Memorial Day, families got word about a loved one dying January, February, March, April, throughout the year. But the country took one day on the calendar, the last Monday in May, to say it is important that we remember the sacrifice of the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of individuals that have died in battle or the military. So now America has begun to repair the crack in the foundation by acknowledging the history and that enslavement ended here on the southwest corner in Galveston, Texas, at the Osterman Building on June 19th, 1865. And we understand that the 13th Amendment was not ratified until December of 1865. We also understand that in the Oklahoma Territory, freedom did not arrive till June 14th, 1866, after 5 treaties were signed. This history is not lost on us. We are not ignorant in celebrating Juneteenth. What we are doing by choosing one day on the calendar is to say all of those days are important and we should celebrate. If you celebrate independence and freedom on the 4th of July, you should celebrate Juneteenth also. And people say, well, that we're not, it's a Texas thing, wasn't 50 states. Well, there were only 13 colonies on the 4th of July, so why should all 50 states celebrate? Because it is the birth of our nation and what we consider freedom and liberty. But not everyone was free. Not only were not enslaved people free, many white people that did not own land were not free to vote and did not have equal rights. So this absolute equality has many areas that we could talk about. So the bottom line on that mural is absolute equality, and that's because we're still marching forward toward what we hope will one day be absolute equality.
Final question. How do you think Al Edwards would feel today?
He would be saying, Happy Juneteenth, just like he said at Aston Villa many times. Happy Juneteenth. And he said one day they will ask, what do these stones mean? Here, this spot is marked where we crossed over from enslavement to freedom. Of course, Aston Villa has been a romanticized story about that crossover, but it is symbolic like many stories. We should not let 10 to 12 blocks of the Osterman Building or Aston Villa divide us on this celebration. Everybody should celebrate freedom. It is the message of freedom that is important, not the monuments or memorials or the marker. So we have a memorial on the wall now. We have the historic marker, and we have the monument of Al Edwards. All of those things help to tell the story of the journey of freedom here in Texas. And you should go over to Aston Villa and celebrate. You should come down here to the southwest corner of 22nd and Strand and celebrate. And wherever you're at, if you're not in Galveston, anywhere on the planet, you should celebrate Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth. 79. Robert Evans. Navasota. You know, celebrating Juneteenth, it's like we don't need to do it. They just put this out here like a carrot. And I'm like, we celebrating the day, man. Okay, we need to be focused on power. To destroy now is ignorance. So the soldiers came to fight for freedom. They brought guns and weapons and bullets, but our weapons of mass destruction against ignorance and intolerance is information and primary source documentation that backs up the story to tell the truth.